Though occupying just over 5 square miles, the culture and vibrancy of New London remains essential to the state as a whole. From the Coast Guard Academy to the thriving arts scene to green energy, there's a lot going on in such a small space. Joining us today is Felix, Reyes, Director of Economic Development and Planning, to talk about what the city has going on in 2020. We'd like to thank our sponsors at Gateway and Housatonic Community Colleges. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state-local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. Felix, thanks for being here. So briefly, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but what does a director of economic development and planning do, and your department as a whole? What do you do within the city government? A little bit.
I would say it's, first I have
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's great. And do you grow up in New London?
yes, born
All right.
city kid,
Stuck with it. All right. A little adjustment here from Christopher Gilson. All right. So as we said in the intro, New London is a large city in a small area. During last year's mayoral race, Michael Mayor Pissarro spoke about the pressing issues facing New London, and primarily the need for development of our downtown and empty lots. How do you grow a city within such a limited space?
Good question. I think it's so right now we have different options of how to develop the city of
Mhm.
New London, and one of the things that we're finding, I would say, more popular and more
Mhm.
successful is the idea of adaptive reuse. It's
Mhm.
difficult, but we want to maintain the historical integrity
Yeah,
of our
because
downtown.
it's such a small downtown. It's already developed. There's no just big open wooded areas, really.
Exactly. There's no green
Yeah.
spaces. We have more brownfields than greenfields.
Yeah. Is brownfields a problem in London?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 400-year-old city.
Yeah.
So you're going to find buildings that are old that used to be dry cleaners.
Mhm.
So adaptive reuse is what we're seeing a lot of,
Mhm.
and that takes a lot of help. I'm trying to find funding and finding the right investors to make that kind of pro forma work. So we're seeing
Yeah.
that done at a scale that we're seeing momentum,
Mhm.
and that's helping develop spaces for our businesses to actually move into.
All right. You touted $750 million in investments in the city. What kind of investments were those?
So that's our pipeline.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've have over $700 million in construction
Mhm.
that is set to take place in the next 5 to 7 years, and those
Okay.
projects are from housing, commercial,
Mhm.
piers, waterfront development.
So that's all stuff that's kind of lined up.
That's lined up either under construction, recently approved, or in the
Mhm.
planning phases, and that's a type of, for a small little city.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a boom. Our building
That's
department.
some serious numbers. Yeah.
Those are some. Yeah, our building department is pretty busy right now.
Good. I think that's what you want, right?
Oh, you want that. Not every development's a good development too. So,
Mhm.
as much as we want investment into our city, we also have to make sure we always take a step back and give thorough kind of due diligence to what's
Mhm.
happening to our city, because it affects, do we have enough water? Do we have enough sewer?
Mhm.
How does it affect our school systems? Not all development is good. I use
Yeah.
that term all the time. But the development that's coming into the city is promising.
Mhm.
There will be attrition. Not everything
Mhm.
will get built out, but that's what we have in our pipeline. That's what's on our boards right now.
So plenty to look forward to then.
Yes.
One of the biggest projects New London will see coming up is offshore wind. Can you talk about the benefits of green energy coming to the city as an urban hub with other things around you? Will wind farms bring jobs to the area?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things that I try to emphasize all the time when I speak publicly is one of the efforts from our office is to make New London a capital of sustainability and green energy, and we're part of Sustainable CT. We've been rewarded the bronze for 2018, 2019. We're
Yep.
going for silver. So the city is doing this, and then having this partner of offshore wind just allows us the marketability of that is exciting. But yes, when you're talking jobs, it's important
Mhm.
because the only way this I feel is successful where New London benefits
Mhm.
if it's our residents that are working there,
Yeah.
not folks from around the world or around the country. So
Yeah.
those are things we're in the early stages of starting to have those workforce development conversations to make sure
Mhm.
that the residents have jobs or
Yeah.
can capture some of these jobs.
Now, during the planning of the wind project, there was some money that was set to go to New London, and now it's not. What happened there?
So with there's bids
Mhm.
that were submitted to Deep, and there was a substantial economic package that if Ørsted Eversource won that
Mhm.
bid, New London would get some brownfield money, some money for our community center,
Mhm.
some business development, and local and regionally, and it
Mhm.
was pretty substantial.
And Ørsted was the company that ended up getting the.
No, and they
No.
lost. They lost the
Okay.
bid. They weren't rewarded anything.
Okay.
And so Vineyard Wind won the 800 megawatts.
Mhm.
Who's proposing to build out of Bridgeport.
Okay.
And, but we're developing relationships with Vineyard and Ørsted and
Mhm.
anyone who's building because now that the state is investing 157 million dollars into our
Mhm.
state pier. We feel as a city, I think it's going to be more than just Eversource and Ørsted
Okay.
that's going to be building out of New London.
Okay. So it's not just. It might have seemed like that was the project, and now there's a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah, I feel so. They're going to be building
So
wind
it's just
farms.
part of that puzzle now.
Yeah, they're going to be building farms wind for New York
Mhm.
and Rhode Island and for other states as well. So we're going to be essentially the hub of where you see these monstrosities of equipment that's being
Mhm.
built right there on our waters.
So there's some new stuff coming in. But we said before, with just 5 square miles total, how important is it that properties, especially private businesses, stay on the tax rolls?
Well, it's critical to municipal budgeting.
Yeah.
I think more than anything is for the mayor to not only put a budget together that is consistent from year to year.
Mhm.
After the Great Recession, New London, because of the property values tanked,
Yeah.
New London mill rate, had to increase substantially. So
Mhm.
now the mayor has to walk that back. So as we work and develop and our city's property starts increasing,
Mhm.
revenues are more consistent. Making sure that what we currently have is sustainable and stays
Mhm.
long term. But also making sure that as administrations change over, because the
Yeah.
mayor's not going to be there forever.
Yep.
He wants to make sure that he's leaving the city in financial health, and you have to do that
Yeah.
now for
Yeah.
at the beginning. So when by the end you pass it off.
You're not just looking at next year; you're looking at next decade.
Next
and, yeah.
decade, absolutely. That's the smart thing to do, and I think all good leadership when
Mhm.
managing municipal finances has to have the foresight to look ahead, not just in front of them as well.
Mhm. Now, one issue that ties in, especially for cities and centers like New London, is the payment in lieu of taxes, or pilot,
Correct.
which is a big issue. And it's basically the state giving cities like New London compensation for the fact that so much of what's going on in town is tax exempt. Hospitals, colleges, etc., that service the greater community. How does that play into your planning and
It's
day-to-day?
From the mayor's side, I would say it's always difficult because you don't know what that dollar amount's going to be.
Mhm.
It's more of an art than a science to try to
Yeah.
figure out exactly what is the state going to provide for a pilot.
Now, is that because there's not formulas out there for what they're provide, or because they don't always follow through with how much you're supposed to get?
But both.
A little bit of both.
Little bit of both. So right now, I believe it's around 12%. In the past has been more.
Mhm.
But that comes from Hartford to
Mhm.
and whatever state statutes are in place that may have to do with that.
Yeah.
Determine what that is, and we try to make some assumptions
Mhm.
going into the budget season. We have a David McBride, who's the finance director for New
Mhm.
London, does a great job in trying to make those revenue assumptions.
Mhm.
But it's never to the penny.
Yeah.
So that's one of the difficulties of the pilot. Would we prefer to have some better tax laws to help our city? Of course.
Yeah.
We don't write the tax laws. We just have to adjust
Mhm.
to them. And we have 3 major colleges. We
Mhm.
have Yale, which bought out Lawrence Memorial Hospital.
Okay.
We have a lot of churches,
Mhm.
and there's no negative relationships with our nonprofits. I think the city does a good
Yeah,
job.
like everyone knows that you need those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're the city, we're the hub,
Yeah.
right? People come to New London for a lot of services.
Yeah.
But do we get compensated for that fairly? Probably not. I think
Yeah.
it's fair. It's fair to say that I think we fall on the short end of truly being compensated to provide those, the homeless shelters, and other types of drug related, mental health related services.
Which people from the greater New London area are coming in from other towns to
To
utilize
use.
those services. Yeah.
Correct, and no different. I'm sure this happens in New Haven, Bridgeport, Britain, Hartford. So New London, we don't have a monopoly on those issues, but that's always a fight that we're always we're always ready for it, and looking for.
Always something we're paying attention to at CCM, certainly.
Absolutely.
This rolls into a different issue with housing and taxes feeding to the need for social services. How do you balance the services you provide with so much land off the tax rolls and so little space? Like, how do you make sure that those services are getting the support from you?
Yeah, so there's two fronts, right? We have planning and zoning. They're the regulations behind anything, like what can be done, what's a good use of a property. And our zoning chair, Barry Levine, he does a good job. He works with our office, he works with the mayor, to truly understand, is this good for New London? Is this a good use? What's the economic impact? Like we said, not every development is good. It's a good development. So we have a great planning and zoning board and commission that takes care of that.
Okay.
That on the housing and social and how that works together, it's very difficult. Affordable housing is something that we do well, but obviously with our social economic, we're a socially economic distressed community, so it's always a topic of contention of, do we have enough of it? And all affordable housing is subsidized in some way, usually state funded, federal funding. So it's very difficult to provide that. So it's a balance of, we need disposable income. Everybody knows that, because your businesses have to survive. Yeah,
someone's got to buy the stuff.
Someone's got to buy the stuff, and you have to have, our downtown suffers because we don't have enough disposable income in our downtowns. But we also have to have, we have the moral obligation. We have to provide people with safe, healthy, and good housing options that I think do have a direct impact on how that family does, how those children do. So it's tough. It's a balancing act. It's a balancing act. But I think in New London, I think we do it better than anyone in the state. I'm very confidently in balancing market rate housing, affordable housing, social services, the nonprofits. I think we've got a great community that does it better than anyone else.
And do you think that you're doing it better? Have you been at it longer? Or some of these issues ones that popped up earlier in New London than maybe the rest of the state with the more recent sort of economic things?
Yeah.
These been stuff you've kind of been working on for a while now.
Correct, and it goes to the diversity of the town, right? The city is extremely diverse. So when you have that type of background in a room, ideas are shared, and those ideas turn to action plans over the years, considerations, and everyone sacrifices a little bit. I think that's a good thing about New London. Everybody's always sacrificing for the well-being and the better good of the city. So I think we do that well. Can we always get better? Of course, there's always room for improvement. But I think the diversity in the people of New London is the reason why we're successful.
We mentioned a little bit about planning forward and looking 10 years in the future. And one big thing that's coming up this year that I think impacts all of these various things is the census.
Yes.
Coming up 2020. Everyone please respond to your census. But how does census and the information that comes out of it, how does that affect your job and the city? So
first, I think this is a good time for a quick plug, because the census are absolutely important. There's a lady in my community development office, Judy Cox, who is spearheading with Jeannie Milstein, who's in charge of our human resources. And they're doing a tremendous job working with the churches, the nonprofits, and getting people comfortable. I mean, it's like anything else. When you're in a very diverse community, you're always going to get some hesitation from your residents about giving information. Whether you're a citizen or non-citizen, it doesn't matter. I mean, people always feel
people knocking on your door asking questions can be a little what's this about?
Intimidating. But I think what we're going through right now is just getting the right people pulling together to lead and spearhead the initiative,
Mhm.
and it's all about education and what the impact is and why this is so important. So we're talking, federal dollars that impact. I think it's like a few $1,000s for every person that you that's part of. And I truly believe we have a population of a little over 27,000. I think we have way more people than that.
Yeah.
So I'm from a planning.
So the official number is 27,000, but you think it's probably
a lot more than that. Our daytime population is around about 35,000 people. But living, they say 27,000. I think that has a lot to do, and those numbers are important, like you said. So how do you plan for that? Because we need to understand, who's living in our city, and are we planning enough 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead so our children's children have a viable city to live in?
Yeah. And I don't know if you're this involved in what they're doing with the efforts, but I know that some of the cities are still looking for people to help out with the census. That there's still positions open. Is that the case in New London? Are they still looking?
Yes. From the last conference that I was at, absolutely. Especially if you speak multiple languages, that absolutely helps. And
they look for people in the community. That know their community to do these jobs. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yesterday, or the day before, Judy just sent out 50 letters out to all the churches in New London to say, hey, listen, please, let's get involved. Let's get ahead of this. This is important, and they play a vital role in for folks to feel comfortable to doing this. They trust a pastor or a priest and stuff like that to tell them, this is good for our community.
Yeah, I think those local voices are key because the laws are there that say your information is safe. It can't be shared with the police, with anybody else at the federal level. But having someone that locally and trust can make a big difference for some people.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants somebody to give it the smell test. I mean, before nobody wants to be on the wrong side of something, or they want someone to tell them and look them in the eyes and be honest and say, this is good for the city. It is really important that you and your family
are counted.
Absolutely.
All right. You are listening to WNHH-LP 103.5 FM. Broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and NewHavenIndependent.org. We're also streaming live video on Facebook Live. Just go to facebook.com/NewHavenIndependent. All right. So another thing that's going on in New London is that New London is a transportation hub for Eastern Connecticut. You have the rail comes right through the shoreline. You got boats. You got all the the docks and electric boat there. 95 comes through. All these things are going on. How do all those act together in New London for your city, and how could that interaction be improved?
Yeah, so we've got great relationships with the ferry system, which goes to Long Island and Block Island with the Ranowskis that cross on ferry, and Stan Mickis. Great relationship with them. They're doing amazing things. They're improving. If you look at, they're making capital improvements. They're improving their boats. I think the engines are being changed out. I mean, you're seeing a lot of capital improvements on the transportation side.
Yeah, and that's a big deal because that and Bridgeport are the only two kind of
ferry
transportation. Yeah,
and people don't realize it's a I would say like a maritime highway, right? So goods are also brought in and out.
There's not just people.
It's not just people, absolutely. And I think people forget about that. So they're critical to what happens in New London. I mean, they have hundreds of thousands of people that come into the city. So that's an important marketing tool, working with them to help get some of those folks off the boat and into New London.
Yeah.
The Amtrak is going through the H.H. Richardson building, the Union Station. It's one beautiful historic
big
buildings.
Old school train station. Yep.
That is it's being remodeled currently right now. It's going through some interior renovations.
So they're redoing the stuff inside, but it's still going to look cool and
it's still going to look historic from the outside. So we're seeing that, and from my perspective, I think it's important that you look at New London, that it is a hub for transportation, and it needs to be invested in, because it just makes more sense that if you can densify the cities and have everybody go to one location to travel out, I think the state will agree that it's cheaper instead of maintaining 8 train stations along the way in every little town. Versus having people go to New London, which is 2 hours north and south of Boston. I mean, it's
a nice location,
beautifully located logistically. So I think those are the benefits, and we're seeing that. We're actually we're seeing businesses that have that are working in Boston and New York actually opening offices and conference rooms and meeting in New London because it's kind of like the center point.
So you got to get the two teams from Boston, New York together.
Yeah,
meet at your New London offices.
And we're seeing that. So Eversource and Orsted is hopefully in the next couple of weeks they're going to be opening up a office in downtown in Bank Street for those reasons.
So right in downtown. That's great.
For those reasons.
Oh, we got a phone. That's all right.
That's me.
He's a busy guy, everybody. He's got a lot going on.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So we at CCM are big fans of bike lanes. What kind of improvements have been made in that area in bicycle-friendly New London?
I'm glad you brought that up. So Sybil Teta is our city planner.
Okay.
And she has spearheaded along the help with Public Works, Brian Sears, and Thomas Quinton on developing a bike path, and it launched the end of last year. So we have a full bike map of share lanes and dedicated bike lanes throughout the city. We have kiosks with maps throughout the city. We are in the process of installing bike racks in key locations at Ocean Beach Park, downtown.
Oh, the park, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Hodges Square that are associated with the maps, and also connecting to other towns. How do we continue to get someone from like Old Saybrook all the way through Mystic, and biking? And we have great. We have Bike New London, and we have Wayside in New London, and they are great advocates, and they have businesses in New London that repair and sell bicycles. So they've been great partners with us in trying to figure out where the bike path should go, some of the safety issues that we have to be aware of. But we launched that last year. We should be finishing up a couple state portions, which take a little longer because you need approvals.
Like connecting it to something like Route 1 or something, or
connecting it just because the state and roads are intertwined with city roads, and people don't realize when they're on the state or city road. So there's certain requirements that they have us little hoops that we have to go through, but they've been great. DOT has been phenomenal through this process and supporting us. So that's a big achievement because that's talking about the walkability and the safety and getting out of your car and seeing things in New London.
Well, yeah, it is a large part of the larger walkable city initiative, which have become very popular in places like New Haven and New Britain. So it's taken off in New London as well.
Yes, absolutely. So this whole thing is because we had share bike companies come to New London, and we were excited their interest in coming to New London. But one of the biggest things that we failed was we haven't developed a culture for riding bicycles, and that starts with putting in an infrastructure, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of a chicken and egg sort of situation. Yeah.
So now that we have the infrastructure in there, and now we start developing a culture for riding on bicycles, and hopefully with that comes different types of entrepreneurial type of opportunities.
So if you just started last year, you're still kind of working on it. It might be a little early for any kind of hard numbers, but just in your own experience, are people using the lanes? Or you see people out on their bikes?
Absolutely. We had a small culture of people. I think now the people are being more likely to go out there and
they see other people doing it. It seems safer. It makes sense.
Absolutely. And the reality and the full transparency, we're definitely seeing a lot more older folks, adults using it. So I'm hoping that this summer we start seeing more kids use it, because I think that's when you start seeing whether people feel that it's safe or not. Will they allow their kids
ride downtown on the bike lane?
That's a big that's I think that when we see that, I think we've turned a corner.
Yeah. That's so funny. When I was growing up, it was the other way around. There was always kids on bikes.
Kids everywhere.
And no adults. Now I see commuters riding their bikes in New Haven, at least.
Yep.
So last time CCM came down to New London, we talked about Riverside Park on one of our CCM chat series with the mayor. For those who haven't seen it, can you tell us a little bit about Riverside Park and some of the cool features like the solar and wind powered charging stations, just how that park kind of came together and developed into what it is now?
Yeah, so first we have to thank the community members on saving the park. Years ago, it was up for debate whether Riverside was going to be sold to the Coast Guard Academy or not. And a group of people came together and saved it. And from that, there was some bonding money put aside to restore it, make it better. Yeah. And when I took this job 2 years ago, the money was just kind of sitting there. Yeah. And I said, gosh, we're killing ourselves to try to create other projects. We have the money. Let's focus on this. So our city planner, Sybil Teta, put together kind of high-level improvements. So that's what we've been doing for the last year, is improving, trimming the trees, giving more view to the water, adding more picnic tables, we were parking, basketball courts, safety issues. So those are the types of things, and then the marketability of the park, right? Getting on the residents to say, hey, listen, you can work with our rec commission, and you can rent that space, and you can use it for a birthday party.
Birthday party at the pavilion, and it's got the nice playground. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you grew up in there. Like growing up, was that a place that people wanted to go? It was just kind of overgrown, sort of thing. Or?
It just wasn't maintained. And unfortunately, that Hodges Square is one of those communities that was cut off in the 70s when the bridge in the 95 came through.
Okay.
So that was kind of their community park, but I mean, I think the reality is that the investment just was never made in the park to maintain it over time. Until we almost lost it, right? You don't know how good you have it until you're about to lose it. So I think they had to kind of come into Jesus moment and say, listen, if we really want this park, we've got to invest in it. We're seeing a lot more people use the space. It's a beautiful park. I mean, it's got a great vista. So we're on the capital improvements part of it. The first phase was the maintenance, and now we're going through the approval process on a design to renovate the promenade, the waterfront.
Oh, nice.
Actually, so that's where the wind turbine lights are located. So we're looking to put more accessible parking. We had an old boathouse that was down there.
Okay.
We had to tear down, and the foundation was still there. So we're turning that to an amphitheater, an outdoor classroom.
Oh, that'll be cool.
So we'll have that along the water and other picnic areas. So I think if once we get approval for that and get the funding in place for that project, I think that will really transform Riverside Park. I think people are going to be feeling really good about it.
I mean, aside from making it a beautiful park, do you think that can help some business in that part of town too?
Oh, absolutely. So there's a small commercial sector in there, mostly gas stations.
Okay.
But they are the capital improvements. We got a brand new gas station, and once that and a plug for Muhammad there, he did a great job with that. And now the gas station next door is doing capital improvements. So so we're hoping that I mean, anytime you see somebody, your neighbor, doing better, it becomes contagious and saying, "Gosh, man, look how nice this looks. I got to get my act together."
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that starts for Hodges Square, but we have other developments. We're improving the streetscapes, the bike lanes, the signage, more artwork. So Sybil has been spending a lot of time on attracting funding from the state and the federal dollars in there. And how do we connect Hodges Square to downtown? Because there is that gap where the highway comes through. And solving that it's the cracking that net has been difficult.
Is there currently any sort of kind of pedestrian friendly way to get from there to downtown?
There's sidewalks there, but more than anything, it's lighting. It's a lot of overpasses, and when you at nighttime, if you can imagine, if you go under any DOT overpass, it's like maybe one light. So no one's gonna. It deters people from walking there, and that is a real definitive kind of line in the sand for Connecticut College and Coast Guard Academy. So we've got to fix that.
Get the cadets and the students
moving in. Yes, moving
not
into
so
downtown.
Isolated in their own kind of little areas.
Campus. Correct.
Another big project that's coming to London is the Coast Guard Museum. It's actually the last branch of the military to get a museum. Why was New London the obvious place for the museum?
Because we're the Coast Guard city.
The Coast Guard City. The academy's right there.
The academy's there. We've been the Coast Guard City. Actually, we're reapplying to keep that title this year. I think it's every 5 or 10 years you have to apply for that. But we are Coast Guard City. I know. I think it could have been in New York at one point.
The museum.
The museum, was threatened, but there's no better place. I mean,
the academy's been there for a long time.
Forever.
Right?
Our research and development is at Fort Trumbull. The academy's there. The Coast Guard cadets. When I tell you, they are a huge part of our community, between volunteering, being in our school systems, ready to serve at any point. They're phenomenal. Them, Mitchell College, phenomenal with community outreach. But we're excited. We're looking forward to it. It's been a while. I mean, I think most people are a little fatigued about, is it coming? Is it going to happen?
Yeah. What is the timeline?
So the timeline is, I think they're looking to break ground next year. I think there's some work being done along the waterfront from the last time I spoke to them, because they've got there's some infill and some preparation on the site that they have to do with deep, but they're moving forward. I'm hoping that we can start seeing this thing built up in the next few years. I think it's not. I don't see it as a silver bullet for New London. I don't. But
a nice addition.
But absolutely, a nice addition. I think it's going to bring people in that we're able to kind of showcase the rest of the downtown. I think that the businesses in downtown would appreciate that type of foot traffic, and I think that can help.
Talking about the foot traffic, and we talked about connecting neighborhoods and whatever. There's some talk in those plans about a bridge over the train tracks or something.
Correct. Yeah. So right now, that bridge not only is for Amtrak but also for Crosstown Ferry, because remember, like as I mentioned earlier, they're booming. And they need the capital improvements both to our garage. We have a garage there. So the city is working on a build grant, a federal grant right now. This is another plug for Carrie Red, who's our parking authority.
Parking authority.
Yep, doing an amazing job, and he is kind of leading that effort on getting an expansion of the garage, and that has a lot to do with building more parking, the bridge to get people over to the other side of the tracks, because we have the trains that go through onto the waterfront. So there's a lot of synergy that's happening on the economic and capital improvements.
Get people to come in on the train or on the ferry. They can connect to one or the other. They can go to the museum. They can hang out downtown. If that's the vision.
Yeah, absolutely. If we want to call ourselves a hub, we have to make those improvements to look like a hub and function like a hub. So those improvements will get us in that right direction.
Sounds like good stuff. So the Coast Guard Museum will be a great asset, and it adds to already thriving culture with like the Eugene O'Neill Museum, the Telegraph, and a downtown area that is full of murals. First off, what is your favorite mural?
Oh, there's a lot to choose from. My favorite is the Whalen mural. Whalen is, when I lived in Long Beach and I got to see a lot of his murals out there on the Long Beach Convention Center, much larger. He did this, I want to say, in the early 90s, and it's been touched up, good and bad, throughout the years. My heart's with the whale, and I think that's something that we really got to start looking at, what the future of that. How do we maintain that? Because it's such a prominent on Eugene O'Neill when you drive through this, and it's chipping.
Prominent, known artist.
It's chipping away, and it doesn't look great. But we do have now this is a good plug for the New London Arts Council. We have an Arts Council because New London is
how do all these murals get into New London?
So we have a community of artists, with the Hygienic being there, with artist studios being there. That's an important part of
the Hygienic. That's a festival they do every year, right?
No, that's an actual. They're a hub for art and they
year round.
They have an amphitheater that's outside. The music culture. They have a gallery. They have housing for artists. There, and I think that we have to increase, because I think, like, if you ask any city, what are some of the things that are part of the revitalization of a city? It's artists and cultural. So we're looking at not only artists, but now we're talking with people with sustainable fashion. Because that's a sector that's often not talked about. A lot of people talk about the painters and the sculptors and stuff like that, but digital media. We've got a lot going on. We have our 10-year reunion for our New England Talent Show. This is a plug for Curtis Goodwin. He's one of our counselors, and he's my economic liaison, and he's on year 10, bringing in talent from across the country. I mean, across the state. People coming in all over to watch these young kids shine on stage. So we're seeing that in New London. But I'm hoping that the next 10 or 15 years, and part of the planning of making New London even better and more attractive, is the increase of our arts and culture. So that New London Council is part of that. We put a group of folks together that love art to help the city make decisions on how to preserve the art, what to do next, and kind of just be a sounding board, a think tank for us.
And so going a little bit broader, talking about the stuff within the confines, but also as a hub, you're in the region that includes 2 major casinos, Mystic Seaport. Is there any regional cooperation that you see between the future of, like, the Coast Guard Museum coming into town and the Mystic Museum or the Pequot Museum? Is there talks there about making the whole region kind of work together?
That's a good question. I think that starts going under the kind of like the tourism of southeastern Connecticut. I think Mystic gets all the accolades. You can read any town and country magazine throughout the country, and they get the best small town, best place to visit.
And it is lovely.
They do amazing things. They do beautiful things down there. They attract people from across the country. So there's a lot to be learned. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from how they do things.
Yeah, because you have so much shared heritage. Like,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I always say a healthy New London is a healthy region, and I think it's important. And Mystic is part of that region. The casinos are part of that region. We feed a lot of the workforce to the Mohegan and the Mashantucket Pequot tribe and casinos. So yeah, I think under the umbrella of tourism, that's one thing that I would say I honestly can be improved. We have a liaison right now, Bruce McDonald, who's working to help New London position itself to get some of the funding to do a better job marketing. And I think you're absolutely right. We've got to do a better job of marketing all the pieces.
Yeah, because you're right in the middle of all these
synergy. Yeah, that's all the synergy.
Little seaside kind of town things that have that cachet.
Absolutely. Someone can come and get a hotel in New London, and within in a week you can tour the entire region.
Yeah.
It's not that big where
you can be at the seaport, you can be at the casino, you
absolutely
can be at the Eugene O'Neill Center.
You can go to Ocean Beach, you can do those things. A family can truly come to New London and vacation and go out even outside of New London to see history and other types of activities and recreation that kids would like as well.
And they can get there by train if they want.
And they can get there by train. They can get there. I think the Groton New London Airport is doing a little. I know they're working on the commercial side of things in the future. So hopefully, maybe in the near future,
a little bit more air transportation to the area.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, great. Anything else you're excited about coming up in the next year?
I'm excited about the mayor, what he has in store for the city for the next 4 years. His vision of what he wants to do, get the city financially healthy again. I'm excited about the narrative that's changing of New London and what even our own residents feel about the city and being able to show progress. I'm excited about that. Investing is coming in New London. People are investing in our city. I'm excited about the historical integrity that's being saved. That the fabric, that's where people come to New London. That the housing opportunities that we're building for people for better housing opportunities. So there's a lot to be excited about the city. And from my perspective, I envision, I plan for my children's children. Right, when you plan a city, you what we live and what we have were decisions that were made in the 70s, and we're living in decisions. So I'm always cognizant of saying, how does this decision affect people 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? And if we keep that type of vision, I think we'll create a sustainable city for our children to enjoy.
All right. So as a native, you're optimistic.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Optimistic in our housing values are increased. Our property values are increasing. So yes. So investment is comes in due to that. When people start seeing that, people are more likely to invest, and that's what we need. That's why our motto in New London is live, work, invest. Right now, and hopefully in the future, we'll turn it to live, work, explore, and then because the investments are done, so
all the investments have been made. Now we're cashing it in.
Now we can enjoy it. So,
all right. Well, I'd like to thank you for being in here.
Thank you.
Thanks to our sponsors at Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. Learn more at gatewayct.edu and housatonic.edu. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our producer, Christopher Gilson is our producer, and Harry Draws is on the boards. I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check in on our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
So,
thank you for speaking with us.
good morning.
Can you tell us a little bit about what makes Riverside Park special to New London?
Well, it's the history of the park goes back to the 1890s. It was when the original tract of land was donated to the city. It was donated over time, beginning in 1890s through the early part of the 20th century, by families that carry names that are you see all over the history of New London, Brandegee, Palmer, names like that. Eventually, it grew to 33 acres. It's on a steep, sloping hill overlooking the upper part of the Thames River in New London. what's generally called the section of London called East New London. It's a beautiful wooded area, and it's right currently in its current state it has 18 acres that have survived to this day as a park. Little by little, some of the park was deeded over to the United States Coast Guard for the Coast Guard Academy, which New London hosts. And actually, the remainder of the park, a very controversial move in 2011, the City Council voted to give the remainder of the park to the Coast Guard Academy for future expansion. And that developed into a grassroots movement to try to save what was left of the park. It was very divisive in New London because we all loved the Coast Guard Academy, but a lot of the city also loved the park, and the thought of giving up what was left of it, the 18 acres that was still left to the people in New London, sort of split the city on that issue. There was a referendum, and I believe it was like 18 votes separated the two sides, and the movement to sell it to the Academy failed by those 18 votes. So since then, there's been a good deal of effort to improve the park, take better care of the park, become better stewards of the park, and invest in the park. And what you'll see up at that park today is about a 4 or 5 year effort to really work on the landscaping, work on taking better care of the trees, volunteers have removed invasive species. There's quite a bit of work that's been done up there. You'll see that a group, there's one of the Sandy Hook Memorial children's playscapes is up there. It's called Emily's Shaded Place. So a memorial to one of the victims of Sandy Hook is in this park overlooking the river. There's been improvements like pavilions that have been done, picnic areas. We improved a basketball court that's up there. So to a good portion of the city, it's a very important park. And there's a neighborhood up there called Hodges Square, which is historic, and this is the park for the Hodges Square in the east of London.
So the park is just over 125 years old. Do you celebrate that too?
Yes, absolutely. The referendum was a healthy thing because the community came together and decided, look, we want to keep this park, we want to invest in this park. That created the Conservancy, which is a volunteer group of people that are stewards for the park. And it also, for the city administration, became a priority for the Parks Department to make sure that park is well taken care of. And I think there's a renewed dedication by all of the community that this is an important piece of our life.
This is a tough business to run for president.
I know. You're a tough guy, Jeb. I'm 2 and you're at 3, so
Doesn't matter.
far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.